Good morning and welcome everyone. I am Jessica Bunker from the Warning Decision Training Division. I'd like to welcome you to today's Storm of the Month presentation. Today's presentation comes to you from the National Weather Service in Charleston, West Virginia and Blacksburg, Virginia. Our presenters are Tony Edwards and Phil Hysell, who will be giving a presentation titled Modernizing WFO Warning Operations, the Power of Automated Communication with 911 Centers. And with all that being said, Tony, the floor is all yours, so take it away.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Again, Tony Edwards. I'm the Warning Coordination Meteorologist here with the Weather Service in Charleston, West Virginia. So let's start out with pretend session. So pretend you're working a midnight shift, and it's about 2 o'clock in the morning, and thunderstorms have set up over a remote part of your county warning area. You can see we're exceeding flash flood guidance here in a remote area, and so you issue a base flash flood warning. Again, it's about 2:15 now in the morning, so you don't want to wake everybody up and your confidence isn't really there. No reports so far have come in. But then without any real action on you, you get an email in your inbox from a 911 dispatcher in that affected area talking about a call that they got regarding flooding from a nearby creek at Liberty Heights Apartments there. And this comes in at 2:39. And then a couple minutes later, you get this automated email from the same 911 center of a person that calls in. They're in a lifted truck and water's up to the headlights, and the caller advised that they're unable to see the water until he was in it. So based on this information, you upgrade that flash flood warning to a considerable tag, set off wireless emergency alerts, and give people valuable warning that a flooding situation is occurring and allowing them to get to safety. And you didn't have to make a single phone call. All this information came into you automatically in your inbox. And this is not really a future scenario. This is something that can be done now using the current computer-aided dispatching systems that are out there. So just to kind of talk a little bit about how we've done business in the past, we're set up very similar to other weather forecast offices out there. We have a pretty good network of weather spotters. We have cooperative weather observers out there, in fact 71 of them in our 49 counties, so pretty dense network. Good network of CocoRa's observers, and of course we also monitor multiple observing platforms, including Weather Underground and iFlows and some other platforms out there. Problem is, weather spotters here very rarely report, despite the fact we have 1,000 of them. It's really hard to get reports from them. Our cooperative weather observers report once a day. They don't do a great job of giving those real-time reports other than what they're required to do in the morning. CocoRa's observers rarely report significant events in our area. And then, of course, we all know the flaws with the automated weather stations out there. So we've also relied on emergency managers, and DOH garages are great for reports, and 911 centers are always open. They're always staffed, and they're often the first contact in a county when someone has a weather emergency. The problem is we've had to manually reach out to them or hope that they call us, which is not very successful, but manually reach out to them, and really that's often at a point when they are very, very busy themselves and overwhelmed. So flooding is our main concern here in our forecast and warning area. Of the 49 counties we cover, 31 have had a fatality since 1990, and if you extend this back in time a little bit, all those counties in the northeast part of our county warning area would be covered with the 85 flood, and we've even unfortunately added 3 new deaths in McDowell County, the southernmost county in West Virginia, with recent flooding. So it's a persistent problem, and it really poses a problem with getting reports. And one particular example I can remember is we had flooding going on. We knew there was flash flooding going on, and we had a flash flood warning out, but we hadn't added the considerable tag to it. And come to find out, the flooding in that area was quite a bit more severe than we had anticipated, and there was a fatality there. During the event, we had called the 911 center, and the response we got was, "We're too busy," and hung up on us. And the problem with that is they had the information. They just didn't have the time to pass it on to us. We never added the tag to that warning to set off wireless emergency alerts. And again, we had a fatality there. So it makes you feel a little bit of a pit in your stomach when you realize you didn't use all the tools in your toolbox. And the information was there. It was just too hard to get a hold of because of the busyness at the 911 center. So I was eating lunch with one of our emergency managers, and one thing about West Virginia, almost half of the counties, the EMs are dual hats, and they're also 911 directors. So I was having lunch. I talked about this problem with one of the EM directors, and he said, I think I can set up my CAD to send you an automatic email every time we log a weather-related incident. And I remember Phil Hysell, who will come on here in just a minute to talk to you, had mentioned that they had a county or two that were doing that to some extent. And so it kind of triggered a little experiment, and he set it up, and we got the rolling on this. And now we're up to 27 of our 49 counties that are participating in this program. Blacksburg has 17 of their 40 counties participating. And basically the way it works is workflow procedures in the computer-aided dispatching system, otherwise known as a CAD, automatically sends an email to our operational email accounts when a weather-related call is logged. You can see the counties over on the right that we have available that are doing this in red. The orange counties have an active 911 webpage available, and you can see Kanawha County is a different shade of color there. That's because they have both. They have an active 911 webpage available, and they also send us an email for the higher impact events that they log. So in an effort to help spread this, I developed this document which will be available to you. And this is a document, a one-pager that you can hand out to sell the quote-unquote product to the 911 directors and dispatchers. So it tells why we need it, tells what we do with the information. It highlights no PIIs needed because we just don't need that information. And then there's also a link that links to a sample workflow procedure, which here's one page of that document. And so this is instructions that were used to set this up in a Central Square Public Safety Suite Pro CAD system. And the input I've been getting is while other counties may have different CADs that they use, they can actually look at this workflow and figure out how to do it in their CAD system. So basically the way this works is they create the National Weather Service as a responding agency with operations email. Most of these could also do text, but it just works right now for us to do email better. And then they create a workflow that notifies us when a call is assigned certain incident codes. So those include flooding, tree down, lines down, storm damage, water rescue, mud rock slide, and that may vary depending on the county and how they have their CAD set up. And then the message is triggered that contains the county name, the incident type, the location. Many do include the lat lawn, which is wonderful. The call details, and again, we do stress that we do not need any kind of PII such as name or phone number information. Just the basics is all that we need. So these emails come in our inbox, and we have a labeling system set up to where we apply. Sometimes the county name is not real easy to determine, so we add a county name label to it, and this also allows for easy archiving. And here you can see how our inbox, how they come in. And here's some sample emails that come in. And again, they vary in how they're set up depending on what CAD system is used, but all the basic information is there. And so it allows us to get this information oftentimes in real time, maybe a couple minutes delay depending on how the CAD system works, but a lot quicker and easier to do than making a manual phone call. So Phil is going to come along and talk about an instance where this worked really well in their county warning area. So Phil, take it away.
Thank you, Tony. Good afternoon and good morning, everybody. So I would like to share how these automated 911 reports really helped our situational awareness and our warning services for a fairly significant flash flood event that impacted Mercer County, West Virginia, and specifically the city of Bluefield, again, on Memorial Day of 2023. So in 2022, a new emergency manager came into Mercer County, and like everybody, I set up a meeting to talk to him and had some talking points. And one of the talking points I always discuss are these automated 911 reports. And I always bring an example of one of these automated 911 reports from another county to show them, it's like, hey, here's what this county's doing. And the big selling point that I use is that this will allow us to allow your 911 professionals to focus on the important work they do for your citizens in your community, and they won't have to be pestered by the National Weather Service asking, hey, do you have any roads closed due to high water? Do you have any trees down? Because, and I'm sure you've seen this too, when I speak to 911 professionals one-on-one, you can see their eyes roll when I say, hey, we need to call you with this information, because they have much more important work to do. And as Tony alluded to, this is just an example of the type of report that we get from Mercer County. So after this conversation I had with the new emergency manager, he immediately said, hey, let's walk next door to the office to the 911 supervisor and see what he says. And as soon as the gentleman, the 911 supervisor, looked at the example, you could see the light go on. He immediately said, oh yeah, this is a workflow and I can set this up by the end of the day. Just tell me what email address you want us to send it to and I'll have it sent to your office. And sure enough, within 24 hours, we were getting these automated reports. So on Memorial Day of 2023, during the morning hours, we had a slow-moving complex of showers and thunderstorms that were producing some fairly significant rainfall amounts across our region. And specifically, we'll hone in on this area in southeast Mercer County, where you see the white asterisk there showing the city of Bluefield. What we found was not only the radar estimates, but the other information and tools that we have were showing the potential for some flash flooding. So at this time, seeing these signals, we went ahead and issued a base flash flood warning. And here is that base flash flood warning, and as you all know, that does not trigger wireless emergency alerts. There were no reports, no indications that there was anything unusual. So 4 minutes later, at 8:38, we received this automated email from Mercer County 911, and it lists several reports of flooding. So we immediately said, oh, okay, our flash flood warning has been verified, albeit not with the lead time we'd like, but we do know and can confirm that there is flooding. And again, we did not have to call the Mercer County 911 Center and take away the attention from the 911 professionals from providing service to the citizens that were calling for assistance. We got this all automatically. So, that bottom report, these are several reports combined into one email, kind of captured our attention. They said, okay, the Bluefield Police Department advised that they're going to have to close a road because the truck that's going through it has some water going up to its bumper. So in the next 7 to 12 minutes, we started to see a flood, and apologize for the pun, a flood of additional emails coming in from Mercer County 911. And this one especially grabbed our attention. And this was at 8:48 a.m. when the report came to us, and it was reported at 8:40. And the report was from an officer that noted that they were attempting to rescue 2 subjects from an apartment, specifically apartment 106, and these apartments were located across from the Coca-Cola plant. And if you really wanted to specifically see where this location was, we had the latitude, longitude. We just typed that into Google and immediately saw the apartment complex that they were referring to. So now we have a situation where instead of people finding the water, water is now finding people, and that's one of the triggers we use to upgrade our base flash flood warnings to the considerable tag. So based on this information, at 8:48 a.m., 8:58 a.m., we issued a flash flood warning with the considerable tag for this area. That resulted obviously in the wireless emergency alerts going out for that area. That allowed us to ring the bell a little bit louder to say, hey, this isn't just a typical flooding situation. This is one that's unusual in nature and fairly widespread and endangering structures, and eventually it turned out to also cause some swift water rescues. And another great tool, another great way you can use this information, once the event is over, we save all of the emails that come in from the automated 911 offices. And when it comes time to do storm data, instead of having maybe one report that's pretty generic and says, yeah, flash flood occurred in Mercer County on May 29th, and it had some flooding of some structures, a few roads were closed. We were able to give really precise information and put multiple flash flood reports across Mercer County with a lot more detail that better documented, more accurately documented the event that happened. And that really helps, of course, the emergency management community when they, request hazard mitigation grants. One of the pieces of information they need is the frequency and severity of severe weather reports, and this is the information they use. So it allows you to capture what happened in a more accurate sense. So we really thank Mercer County for this service. And after this event, I reached out to the emergency manager and told them and said, hey, I can't tell you how helpful this was, and here's how it was helpful. And that conversation initiated an opportunity to present to other emergency managers and to state agencies and other 911 offices about this service to be able to use this example. And I think Tony presented this at a state conference, and it opened a lot of eyes, and a lot of communities are not aware that this service is available. So for this specific flash flood event, the radar estimates turned out to be too low, and those initial reports of flooding really improved our situational awareness for future flash flood warnings. And again, because it was on Memorial Day, we weren't getting as many reports as usual. And Tony talked about the limitations with the Skywarn spotters. We have those same limitations here as well. So we likely would not have heard about the reports of flooding, or would have heard about the reports well after the event started. And we definitely, I can say with 100% certainty, we definitely would not have elevated that base flash flood warning to the considerable tag as early as we did, had it not been for that report that came in near real time. And it also, again, really helps with storm data to provide a more accurate summary of what happened during those events. And Tony, I'll turn it back over to you to talk about some of the limitations and challenges that we had with this.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. So 911 directors and dispatchers are really an entirely new partner group. I think a lot of times we think that they know who we are, what we do, why we need their information, but I've found that many do not understand what we need to know and why we need to know it. They kind of lump us in a lot of times with the media, and so they're hesitant to give us the information. But so it does require some outreach and some education on our part and their part. And so in-person visits to 911 centers were the best way to spread this information. And I really, through this whole process, found a new respect for dispatchers because it's amazing what they do and the information that they have and how they juggle calls and information and notifying people. It's really, really interesting we've actually had one of our forecasters shadow a 911 center dispatchers to, bridge that gap. And so anything you can do in that regard is great. Dispatcher training days, often they have those, and so you can go and present. You can attend 911 conferences. We have those in West Virginia. Every month there's actually a 911 council meeting that I've been now added to the list, and I attend those meetings and provide updates. The more organized the 911 system is in your state, whether it's through state councils or through APCO or NENA, these are associations kind of like in WCO that we have, that, the more organized they are, the easier this will be to spread in your areas. We cover 4 states, and not every state has been as easy to spread this to as West Virginia has because of a little bit more disorganized nature to how 911 is handled in that state. The big one is a dedicated person may be needed, I'll change this, will be needed during severe weather and flood events just to keep up with reports. Once you get the ball rolling and get a handful of counties going. Phil passed on a recent wind flood event in their CWA, saw about 200 emails in less than 90 minutes. And so the volume of emails at that time resulted in them missing information about a school briefing that we do in the state. So it does require someone to watch the inbox. And the feedback I've gotten from our staff is that the benefits outweigh the cost. So it's worth it to have that person in sharing that information, because the amount of information and the detail with the information you're getting is a real benefit to warning operations. I do know that there is a technology answer to this problem, maybe even NWS Connect. I don't have that expertise. We do have a forecaster in our office that has a lot of technology skills, and he's working on that problem. But I could see a situation where scripting pulls the pertinent pieces of information out of these emails as they come in and plots them on a map or puts them into some format that can be used where it's not just a manual, a human being looking over that. And finally, you may be surprised how much information you received. I'll tell you one thing, we have figured out that trees fall here with much less wind than we otherwise thought they did. In the past, we had a bad habit of perhaps just calling for the warnings that we had issued and not the special weather statements, but you get all the information with these alerts now. And so we're finding out that, 45, 50 mile an hour, it knocks down a lot of trees in our county warning area. So we're having to adjust how we think about things and how we do our warning operations. So these are all lessons learned. Another thing you'll find out is some counties, you might teach them that this functionality exists in their CAD. That's happened to me, and then they've realized how useful it is, and they've set up other agencies to be notified in this way. And then you'll find some that just don't want to participate, and that's fine, because like I said, we've got roughly half of our counties. That's 50% of the counties that now we don't have to call, and so we can focus on those areas that aren't participating. So it's important to have a map up in your operations where you can see, and folks doing the verification can see who's participating and who's not, so they can focus those verification activities. So we do have a couple of resources that Jessica is going to share some links. One is the one-pager that you can edit and share in your county warning areas. The other is the workflow rule for Central Square Public Safety Suite Pro, and that's linked in that one-pager. And I am working with some other counties to use other CADs, one being Motorola right now, to get those documented because that's a pretty widely used CAD system. So I believe that's all we've got. I really appreciate your time, and I'll turn it back over to Jessica.
All right. Thank you guys for such a great presentation. As we'd like to thank today's speakers, Tony Edwards and Phil Hysell, for today's presentation. As always, we are looking for presenters. So please reach out to myself, Jessica Bunker, or Chris Spinagle if you are interested in presenting. Thank you all for attending, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.